Hello, and a warm welcome to episode 1 of series 1 of the Align with Aline podcast. Thank you so much for joining me, and I am delighted and honored that our first guests today are Kristos and Foster Perry of the Golden Hummingbird and Universal Mastermind. I have no words of gratitude. Now, for those of you who don't know Kristos and Foster, they have 30 plus years of teaching experience in shamanism, in hermetics, in witchcraft, in astrology, well, just to name a few. I will post all the links underneath so you can find everything about them as well. Now, Kristos and Foster have been teaching for 30 plus years all around the world. They have 20,000 plus students globally. And now they have started organizing to teach us online. And there are some incredible series on Vimeo's, now season 5, I believe, of beautiful teachings from their 30 plus experience that they are sharing so generously, so compassionately, with love and with a lot of laughter. So thank you so much for joining me today. I just can't tell you how grateful I am.
Well, it's great to jumpstart your podcast. Finally,
yes,
we were talking about this for an aeon, basically, but here we are.
Come on, Aline.
Push.
So we've been talking a lot. I've been going on, and I've been really feeling about talking about the new moon influence, and we're now in the year of the water rabbits. So could you speak to us a little bit, please, about what is the water rabbit year, how we can work with that, and how you would recommend, when we're in a place at the moment, we're in retrograde free planets, hurrah! So how we can work with this and how we can keep the positive aspect of the water rabbit whilst everything is going on around us in the world, basically.
Well, the water rabbit definitely is connected to the moon, because rabbits themselves are symbols of the moon. You know, we have the Wicca symbol of the 2 rabbits jumping over the moon, the white rabbits. And when we get into feng shui, this is the black rabbit. But it is, again, a lunar influence over our lives, because the rabbit itself, thinks it can win the race, as the old story goes. And then it gets a little lazy, and then it lets the tortoise win because it falls asleep. So the negative detriment of a rabbit would be that it has too much hubris and, gets a little lazy and gets sleepy and doesn't stay attentive and active. So it's very different than a tiger year, which was incredibly active. We are now going into something much more diplomatic. I wouldn't say passive, but the rabbit itself, when we enter this, vibration, this frequency, let's say, rabbit people in Chinese astrology tend to not show so much. There's a lot more going on underneath that they don't show. They're very easy to get along with. They're quite sociable. So it's a good year for networking. It's a good year to be social. It's a good year to come out. It's not terribly deep. Rabbit people, I would have to say. They like to hide things, so you don't really know what they're thinking. And therefore, I would be very careful. But at the same time, the deeper mysteries of the moon, of course, is what I would explore this year. I would go much more inward. I would take care of myself. I would take care of my health. I would definitely prioritize that. It's very good for healers. It's great for wellness to go to healers this year, to go to places that are spas and, healing centers. That's really, it's time to take care of yourself. Gorgeous. You want to say anything, Kristos, about that?
You see, for me, I like to look in the past to see what the future brings, because everything comes in circles, in cycles, in waves, right? And that in astrology, of course, is a common understanding that nothing really is new. It just is interpreted by what the mindset of the global community is at this point. You see, to move a planet, we need everybody to move or nothing moves in that sense. If you look at the water rabbit specifically, because it's an element within the sign, fire rabbits, water rabbits, fire tigers, earth tigers, and so on. So the water rabbit, water is definitely a purifier, is a cleanser. And what we will experience, and I think this already, is that the more emotional suppression happens, despite being spiritual and working on things and knowing things and getting prepared and so on, there is this element that has to break through eventually. So it is a year where I see sometimes out of a scratch or out of a little dot, it turns into a huge medical concept, for example, or one little financial decision, and it becomes this avalanche of issues. So the water rabbit represents what you can't avoid. You can go to a certain degree, but you cannot avoid ultimately your own responsibility. In other words, people come and say, look into my health. And I tell them, please take care of this, but take care of that. And look into this, and there's a surgery announced. But ultimately, there is this one personal element in your emotion that says, I'm sorry, even with this information, it's too late. You have to break through something. So the water rabbit, of course, the rabbit is not a courageous animal in that sense, you see. It's like security and safety. To some degree, it's also a year that represents denial. Oh, it's fine. Oh, it's good. Let's fake it till we make it. And, then the big surprise comes. But this is the idea. You have to really listen in spirituality, specifically in between the lines, because the water rabbit makes a lot of things blurry, but this is a year where you will be tested in your courage, good or bad. If we look in the past, Aline, we see that, for example, if you look at 1903 was a water rabbit year, and it was the first successful powered flight of a plane.
Wow.
All right. Excuse me. Now we have Elon Musk and his rockets. Now we have the new space telescope, where every day we discover new exoplanets where we basically could escape to, which we have to at some point. When you look at 1963, which was an intense water rabbit, again, water rabbit is all about peace and harmony and love. I don't see it at all, because I see that if you look at 63, 250,000 people marched for civil rights in the US. I think JFK was killed in that year, and Martin Luther King gave his big speech. You see what I mean? You see that there's nothing rabbit about it, but it is the rabbit. What happens to a rabbit that is fed up? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
What happens to a rabbit when you're fed up? You snap, right? Other rabbit years with different elements, by the way, for example, are 1999, the last year of the millennium. See, that was also a year, I believe, when Clinton was impeached in his trial. What is appropriate, what is not appropriate, you see? He was a rabbit, right? He was a rabbit, and, well, a rabbit with a taste for willing assistance. There's two to tango, so. And then 2011, for example, was a rabbit year where I remember 2011, a lot of politicians just resigned. It was one after the other. They said, I'm out of here. And the Iraq war ended. You see what I mean? The rabbit for me here is a wake up. It says to the society, wake up, because the bunny looks cute and sweet and fluffy, but he's got bite.
So
he's got bite.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think always what I say is, when we look into astrology, and especially Chinese astrology, and compare it a little bit, we can look at years like repetitions, if you want. Certain elements, will reappear in that sense. So of course, the water rabbit is important. because it represents feelings, as Foster says, and the lunar element. And more than any other year, it is a spiritual year. And numerologically, we have a 7-year, which is also introspection. So it is really about being confronted with the inner mirror, you know. And that's why Foster always says, and I agree, if you don't do the inner work, spiritual practice is basically just a hobby. You know, there's no difference between that and getting your, you know, getting your nails done. You cannot remain superficial. The bunny, as much as we want to take the right to fluff it up and hug it, and you know, if he says I have enough now, he's going to bite you, and the bite is intense. So I think that society-wise, we're going again through a questioning of politics, of human rights, of gay rights, of women's rights. Right now in Florida, you cannot mention the word black history. See what I mean? You know. So the question here for me is on a larger scale, and I think it will be a big theme in general in politics, especially people's politics as well. How far can free speech go?
Okay.
Yeah, free speech, yes, but free speech that says I close the door to something that happened, and by not mentioning, not teaching it, it doesn't exist. You see what I mean? That is, again, back to the cycle. That is when a little scratch will turn into a big cancer.
Okay.
You see? And no matter how you evolve, you see, the lesson is in your internal system. That is the idea. So we're going to have a year where people will be very fed up, and they will start snapping. We were talking with Foster a little bit about the mass shootings in California now, which are, interesting enough, by Asian people.
On the Chinese New Year.
On the Chinese New Year. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
It's a lot of
I'm not surprised. They're fed up.
Yes.
They're fed up. Let me kill you and you see how that feels. You see? Eye for an eye, right? So it was so specific that I know exactly where this year is going. When on the lunar year, the year of the rabbit, right? They're taking out the gun. I'm going to go and shoot a couple of people. That happens once and twice and three. I mean, this is also, you know, almost normality in the US, you know. But again, I think we're going to have to question a lot our rules, our laws, and how far we allow laws to protect the word, you know what I mean? The thought, in that sense. Germany did it, you know, to this day. You cannot be a Nazi, you cannot be a fascist, you cannot, they don't even deal with, you know, they're just shutting it all down. It's in our constitution in Germany, you know, we're never going to go back to war. We can help, but we will not be dragged into it. We will not, again, go down that route. And so, yes, you can say whatever you want, but if it is against the human nature and a deterioration of opinion, if you want, a deteriorated opinion, I think that's the way I want to say it, they're locking you up. You see, here where we are in US, you know, it's free speech, free right. Well, then something has to replace this, and the rabbit represents this replacement. Okay, you can fluff me up a little bit and feed me carrots, but I'm not human, and I don't understand the human ways. You know.
Yeah. So do you feel it's very much a year of discernment and creating very healthy boundaries around us?
Yes, I think it's really necessary. Like Foster always says, the rules, you know, you cannot say, these are my rules and I'm going to stick with them until the day I die. That's ridiculous. You're shifting, you're changing, you're evolving, hopefully. And therefore, rules have to be reevaluated.
Well, look at flooding, you know, in a rabbit year, you will have floods. You know, that's what happens as a predecessor to this year. California had terrible floods all over the world. And now we have, you know, these tremendous rains that are still occurring here. And on top of all the flooding is all the emotional, you know, when we'll have a huge emotional reaction. You're talking about JFK's assassination, which was a country mourning. You know, you have a tremendous flooding on that level of water. When you have these kind of mass shootings and people not doing any kind of inner work and they're exteriorizing everything, when the emotions, you know, are flooding their systems and they start taking a gun and shooting everybody in a dance studio, that's quite a thing. I think there's also this idea of don't have any fun, don't enjoy it, don't enjoy the fertility, don't enjoy this matriarchy that's coming in this year. Because matriarchy, when it starts to enter, when Pluto did the full circle, and now that Pluto is bringing in a matriarchy after 1,000 years really of patriarchy, that's going to be, I think, what you're talking about, like a woke culture or a waking up. People are going to change tremendous amount of habits. That means people who are still stuck in patriarchy are going to act out with the gun, with violence. You know, they hid many things. They made it very secretive what happened to JFK when he was shot. They cover it up so that I can see a lot of that happening this year. I think in a water year, it's going to be quite an eruption of underground emotional reactions to this emerging feminine quality that's entering the world.
Well, just yesterday, I think, yeah, I mean, just yesterday or this morning, I think I read that an ice plate the size of, was it New York? England or London, a massive piece just broke. You see, that water has to go somewhere. You know what I mean? That's the idea. Let me give for your listeners and your audience, Aline, a little insight how to understand the year in general, because it's not just the water rabbit and astrology. It is also the ascended frequency by which we're going through, because we are witnessing now transitions from exoplanets like Saturn, Pluto, Neptune into the next sign, which happens rare enough. And it's very specific to be alive during these transitions, because once, you know, my Saturn moves into the next house, it stays there, or Pluto, it stays there until, you know, the day I die, basically. It will not change. So certain changes are one-time changes, one-time shifts. We are in the shift now, but we're going to only see that. And the idea is that my guide said in that respect, when people come to you and they say, you know, am I ready? Am I ready to do it? Like you did, right? Over the years, listen, I would love to do something, but am I ready? Should I be? If you have to ask if you're ready, then you're not. Because if you are ready, you're just going for it. And that is what this year provides. You see what I mean? It's almost a little bit the idea of, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it, which is true. You see? But the transitions of the exoplanets, I think, are really crucial. Because when a Jupiter moves every 12 years, a Saturn every 28 years, a Pluto 200 years or something, you know, a long period. It is one thing to be born in that time period, and then you experience the society in that sense. But even from that point, numerologically, energetically, spiritually, you see, whenever planets shift so global, right? We call these ascended circles in my tradition, in my school. So it's called that whoever did the work ascends. Whoever goes ascends. And there's no way back in that sense. So not everybody will do that, or wants to do that, or needs to do that. You see, so it's important for people of a spiritual nature not to try to convince and drag people into ascended states where they have no business being. It sounds harsh, you know what I mean? But I'm not going to make you run a marathon because I love it so much, when I know that you're just not capable of running it, and say, do me the favor and do it. You will get hurt, you see? So again, and it's not about, I'm going to be higher, you're going to be lower. It's not that stuff. You know, I really recommend you guys listen to our last podcast, which is a channel, basically. And I think because I had to listen to it to hear what I said. You know how that works with me.
It's
And
incredible. Yeah.
you know, and Foster asks, of course, the most appropriate questions. And the answer that I got out of it, or the main theme was, oh, help me, Foster. It was the stop thinking in separation. There is no the fifth dimension and the first dimension and the angels and the demons and God and the goddess and all that stuff. There is none of that. You see, but the more we have been trained to systemic belief, I can believe in this, but not in that. And I can believe in this, but not in that. In Kabbalah, we call it Chokmah, which is, for me, the place of all possibilities, you see. And some people who enter this state of mind are one step away from ascension, which the next one is Keter. So you're on of your house, so to speak, and you see, reaching that mountain, you know, that's the idea. But Foster always says, and I'm always frustrated, and I say to Foster, why did this not work and that not work? And he says, people don't do the inner work. They just rummage through it. They rush through it. They want to be masters in 5 days and solve all their problems in a weekend, 2 weekends usually, and everything over, that's the idea. That's why when we do these Vimeos, it is 9 in a season, and basically the participant has a weekend to work with it, and then they have the Q&A with him on Monday. Next. And it's like, oh my God, it's like pushing one other, but that's exactly what it is. It is to create an intensity in various forms of vibration. Because the first video was about sex magic, and the last video that we're not doing is about cities, which is the Hermetic tradition in India, for example. But there is no difference to it, no matter how we call it. You see what I mean? It's all one big push to get people into their own ascension. Because I don't know what's going to happen once you ascend, because it's so individual. But as I said, Aline, time to become a teacher. Aline, time to create a voice. Time to, I don't know for how long we said that, but bless your heart. finally, this feels normal, right? This feels normal. That's what you should have done. Absolutely. So now that you're in your ascending role, there you are.
I remember you talking as well, how the Vimeos as well, it's very much creating the energy of a mystery school as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's giving people a lot of powers. This year, we started with sex magic, where every time you have sex now, you're creating powers. You're charging things with it. You're doing different things. So you never waste an orgasm. You never waste masturbation. You never waste the sexual act. It all becomes spiritual now in higher tantra. The last one now is even higher tantra. We're going into larger rituals of tantra. But more than that, in between, we talked about love, Hawaiian love, the connection between your lower, middle, and higher selves, the understanding of aloha. So we went from sex to love to the Goetia, which was, I want people to work with spirits. And there are Cupidic spirits there. There's spirits that are full of love, and there are also other spirits that are quite harsh teachers. But when you are a shaman or a witch or any person who all of a sudden wants to work with spirits for your own inner teachers, for your own guidance, for your own understanding of your own brain, when you put them all together, you're empowering people on a very high level. What are they going to do with these powers? Because that's why we move to cities. What are you going to do when you're doing practices of non-duality, like Kristos always saying yes to everything and no separation, and there's only oneness? You are basically talking about the essence of yoga, the essence of what all of yoga has been teaching and India's been teaching for a few thousand years. So when we are in this particular state of union, whether it's orgasm or, because in orgasm, you go into a void kind of state in which you are essentially connecting to the divinity. And I wanted people, especially this year, to feel finally happier in their bodies, happier about sex, and much more pleasurable. That it doesn't have to be a hard karma kind of life, that it can also involve a great deal of pleasure. And that's what it has come to me so far this year, this idea of we're embracing sexuality. All my judgments around sexuality and yoga are finished now. You know, I'm not saying to everybody to have sex. I'm just saying that we're clearing out every kind of dogma, every kind of belief in the subconscious mind is here. And that way we open up very clearly to spirit and to different spirits who teach us. At least that's what I'm in the videos. Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me. Now, I remember when you came back from your sacred tour in Egypt, and the main teaching that you had there was yes. So could you talk to us a little bit about that, please? And obviously that's been very, very that's been very high in all your podcasts as well, and especially the most recent one, which is incredible, and you have to watch it, by the way.
You see, I think where guidance comes from, I speak only through my perspective, because you know, it's coming through my brain, but not my intelligence, because that stuff usually is, you know, when I listen to my own sessions, I'm like, that's not me, you know, that's a little too an element higher of what I am interested in, even at this point, you know, from a human point. So when perspectives come in, you know, and they're repeating, and I'm paying attention, the yes tribe. I think in Egypt, they used to call the yes tribe. And it began a little bit with the idea, we are the yes tribe. We are not saying no ever on the other side, so-called other side, right? But the concept was simply, if you say yes, and that doesn't mean I say yes to an abusive person. I say, yes, you are an abusive person, and I take the right. You see what I mean? Because the replacement of the word karma is the word yes. Karma, in my tradition and in my experience especially, has always been described as and been used and misused by people who love their drama. Drama loves an audience. It's one of our other podcast titles. You know, it's my karma to be with this man. He has to do something right. It's usually a woman who makes this. And then also, you know, occasionally I have to carry the karma of my family. Again, I don't say it's wrong, because there are elements of it. And my guides at some point, the best way to dissolve this karma is to say yes to it. Yes, I acknowledge it. Yes, I'm responsible for my part of it, not for every. Yes, I'm okay with where I am. Yes, I want to change my body, but I will not love it when it's changed. But I say yes to what is. In other words, you cannot transform your health if you say, oh, now it's crap, but once it's better, then I'm going to like it. You have to get out of these limitations and segmenting of emotions. And so the word yes sounds weird, but it is really more of a frequency more than anything else, a frequency that is applied, that says, yes, I know. That's what wakes me up. Being woke means to know that you have contributed on some level to the experience you have. There is no other way. That's law. I don't say, people say, oh yeah, that would be great to be gassed up in a chamber in Auschwitz. Yeah, that's what I want. Of course not. Of course not. You see? But when you end up in a situation as dramatic and you say, yes, something in me must have contributed to this, because this is not just a little personal experience. This is a global experience. This is, you know what I mean? It is, you see, in that sense, let's dramatize a bit. Genocides, the biggest genocide happened from Africans to Africans. You know, if you want genocides, that's where it happened. Africans, you know, killed Africans. So the whole Jewish thing and the whole Holocaust, and my God, what happened to the Mexicans and to the Native Americans, for Christ's sake. And you know what I mean? We find this everywhere, but look at a society like Japan, for example, you see, who are brutes. I mean, that was a really warrior Mars kind of country. And look at the refinement of it. I don't say they don't have problems, But look how they chose to say, yes, we are responsible for all this. Yes, we want to get better. Yes, we want rules. And yes, we agree to all apply these rules. They apply to everybody. In other words, you're not better than me. And this doesn't make you more entitled to this. It's the opposite of America, where people call the manager because they don't like the weather. You know what I mean? It's amazing to me. The entitlement here is mind-blowing to me, I have to tell you. And yet, my guide always says, this is a yes world. No one ever was pushed into this planet and forced to incarnate. Everyone who is here said yes. And so for us, that's guidance. For us, if everybody could say for 1 second, yes, I agree with what I chose, otherwise I would have chosen it, it would transform the whole consciousness of this planet. You see what I mean? So the idea of the yes is a form of agreement, right? It's an agreement and an acknowledgement, a woke acknowledgement that we are here on this planet to learn to manipulate energy. And that's what all the ETs and extraterrestrials and other civilizations, not all, but a lot, have ahead of us. They're doing it already. See? And that is the idea, breaking through a wall of social and religious manipulation. You cannot, and of course, women are, on the lowest level of the food chain, so to speak, unless they have some value. So, like Foster says, this is a time of the matriarchy. See? And even women don't do everything right. You see? That's the idea. So now we want female leaders, and it goes to crap, right? Or we have Jacinda, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, who did a great job, but she's being, you see, the misogyny in our societies is mind-blowing. I read, with Foster, sometimes we talk over breakfast and lunch, when we have a little meal. I said, can you imagine how many people are, because Madonna is now going on tour, right? The 40-year tour and so on. So everybody calls it the broken hip tour, right? The broken hip tour. And I thought, and this is women. The misogyny that comes from women is the most dangerous. A woman who criticizes another successful woman, especially, will never be a friend of another woman. Absolutely. Never. See, they usually are infected by their husbands and their partners and their fathers. They think you see what I mean? And all I think is, oh God, do better. Do better, you see, because we're talking about somebody who achieved something with no, I have to say, I do admire her, as a person, Madonna. I think what she did is amazing, amazing. So the last thing she needs is snide comments at this point. You see what I mean? Because the ground of these comments is misogyny. That's what it is. It's like Christians, or Satanists. There's no difference. They're all angry. What they have in common, they're all angry about something. Satanists are like angry Christians, and angry Christians are basically just entitled, consumers of capitalism, nothing else. What do you guys want? We have to get back to a rabid mind, you see? We cannot just fluff up a pillow and say, oh, it's all good. So the first thing that me and Foster agreed on is, let's say yes to something. Let's say yes to it, because it's easy to go back and say, oh God, we shouldn't have done this. We shouldn't have done that. And if we did this, and if we did, you see, I can't stand that at all. So yes, we agreed to do this. We agreed to move. We agreed to change. We agreed to get on. We agreed to do something, you see, and that is the opposite of karma. I hope that makes sense, but that is what it is.
No, absolutely. It really does. Thank you. And it's interesting you mentioning about Satanists, because I posted something the other day, and it was about reset with a new moon, and I was guiding through a process. and I shared it with the world. And it's really interesting you say about the misogyny of women, because a woman wrote on there something about, and I didn't know what this was. I don't know if you've heard this expression, here's your wig, sir. I had to look it up. I had no idea what it meant.
Yeah, it's a German word for yes, for
yeah.
yes.
And
For
then,
what?
and then somebody,
Ranking.
and then another woman put Satanist. I was like, okay, thanks very much. But but it was really interesting, because I could have, because of the yes, because of all the amazing teachings with you, I just said yes. And that was okay. That was their entitled, their opinion, but I don't have to take that on. And I'm going to continue saying yes to what I'm doing, you know?
Right.
So yeah.
That's exactly what it is. You know, I don't know, Foster, how do you deal with this?
Well, I'm having an experience this year of fertility of the rabbit. That's why I'm talking about sexuality.
Yeah.
Because if you're going into anything about rabbits, they multiply. And so I'm also looking at, why do women have to get married? Why do they have to have babies? This fascination now with only the lower development, you just have babies. This is your purpose. When I am surrounded, 50% of everybody who comes to us do not want to have children, want to be independent in this life, you know, even if they have moments of, I wish I had a mother, or I wish I had a partner, or I wish I had somebody. Actually, many, many women are choosing not to have that, and not to be told that they have to have a baby and they have to have a husband. So then if you're not going to have all those things, what else do you want? And that's when I started to go into this fertility idea. What about the idea that all this universe is created by whatever? In India, it's Shiva and Shakti, you know, and their union. What if it's this union inside of us that is part of our ascension? Maybe we have to look at things very, very differently. When I see somebody saying that you're a sadist, I mean, it's a huge judgment, and it comes back to them, unfortunately, because you're dredging up your shadow. You're basically saying that you can't accept some part of yourself, and now you're going to project it onto me, and you're going to make me wrong for what's going on inside of you in your subconscious mind for so many, whatever, a century of putting down people. Because if I get into Satanism, you could say healers are Satanists, everybody who does healing work, everybody who's been doing, you know, birthing babies and all sorts of things, you know, what we call, you know, the women who always helped in a person's life spiritually. You could say everything spiritual then is Satanism. And if you're doing that, you're creating a huge shadow. And that particular shadow you're sitting on top of, and it will erupt eventually. Whether in the society, you're going to be confronted by your shadow, because there's something going on when you raise the frequency of a planet, you're forced to look at your own projections. You're seeing what is your illusion, what is your Maya. And it hits you right in the face, and everybody notices it now. When I'm around young people and somebody says, oh, you're a Satanist, everybody turns around like, well, who are you to talk?
Yeah.
What kind of, you know, judgmental Christian are you? Do we really need you in this next century? That's what kids say, especially to me. Or they say, who are you to put down transgender, you know, Ron DeSantis? Who do you think you are, not allowing Black people to have their own kind of educational system just because you're a racist and anti-gay, like a Bolsonaro? You know, a lot of us have had enough of that. Not that we're screaming liberals or something, but really enough is enough. This all involves sexuality and the right of a person over their body. You know, they tried to get rid of all abortion rights in US, and now we have a huge conflict about that. So when are we allowed to have the pleasure in our bodies? When are we allowed to finally accept people as they are, and accept this world as it is, and see it clearly as it is, that all of it is divine? And we can go off, you know, we can be imbalanced in our subconscious mind and have all sorts of perversions and other things that we do have to face within ourselves, because they will be projected out. They will eventually come to the surface. So when somebody calls me a Satanist, I think, what are they hiding? What kind of weird judgments are they hiding about women, gay people, about everything in life? And what kind of a limited life is that?
Yeah. No, it's absolutely, I agree. Absolutely, I agree. The people who scream in politics anti-gay are being caught usually with hookers, gay massage friends, gay assistants, you know, the assistants and so on, you know, and that is something that is really, how can I say? Yeah. It's also funny how, and I want your listeners to also understand, you know, if you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist, you know, you should not comment on other faiths, you know, because it is inherited in their religion. Go from door to door and praise the Lord, you know, the word of Jesus Christ. Who invited you? This is, for me, I think, something where I'm surprised that we don't have more casualty murders here, because, you know, I would shoot somebody in the face if they would come with that. You know, I didn't invite this. People say very often, why are you so much into witchcraft or Wicca or paganism? Well, it's the only religion in the world that has never, you know, declared war in the name of God. It's the only one, you see. And if you read the Bible, and I did 28 versions of it, that's how many there are, because, you know, the manipulation goes on. You know, I don't want to be part of that religion. It's not love. It's love as long as you shut up and don't do nothing and don't question anything and just follow me, and me, or else I'm sending you down the fires of the pit of hell for 17,000 millennia, but I love you. You see, that is bullshit to me. That is total bullshit to me. And I am an occultist. An occultist is somebody who studies the religion. That's what it means. Every Christian is an occultist, because when you read the Bible, that's what occultism also means. It means to read and study the religion. You know, that's, you know, a little culture for all you, for, you know, because, you know, I love this country, I have to tell you, but Americans think frozen yogurt is culture. You know, so trust me, you know what I mean?
No,
you know, I think Olive Garden is a restaurant. So
the
you know,
occult is also about what's hidden. So we're also looking what
exactly.
is behind the Bible. What is the Sumerian text
No.
behind that? What is the older text from Babylon? And we keep going further back now to get to some semblance of the truth.
Pre-Abrahamic, you see, pre-Abrahamic, the religion of Asherah, the mother god, Sophia, Asherah, Hecate, Isis. You know, there was a mother god as a principal supreme divinity, as well as the family. What I want to say is, and people think, or is it me personally, that I'm against Christians or something, and I'm not. I just am surprised that no one, well, there's a lot of younger people involved, Christians, for example, Catholics especially, and they question the scriptures. And that is, to me, the most exciting thing. You see, this is a woke Catholic, a woke, you know what I mean? Somebody who says, wait a minute, it doesn't say this at all. This is not mentioned at all. This is not even part of this at all. There are people who are almost in an academic way really confronting the scriptures and saying, you know, no God would talk like this. You know, no God would talk like this in that sense. And you see, and the second thing is, when a religion excludes women, okay, people think Buddhism is such a lot. Come on, give me a break. Buddhism is patriarchal to the bone. Patriarchal to the bone. Give me a break, okay? That's the idea. Pope is
Brahmanic India. Brahmanic India is full of this caste system. You see, know, only Tantra was breaking through the caste system and treating women equally.
You see what I mean? And you can repress a natural state of balance as long as, because it's not about now the matriarchy will take over and basically, you know, it's the same like white people in America are so afraid that now black people with power could spin the wheel against them. You know, now they have power, you know, the Beyoncés and the Jay-Z's and the Kanye's of the world. Now they're going to mobilize against us. Well, you know, the key is balance. Male, female, electric, magnetic. We live in a polarity, and the key is to learn to be in the balance of the polarity. I don't say there's no God. I believe in God, of course I do, but by no means as a vindictive, judgmental, you know, leader of politics, right? Let's not forget, with Foster, we had a lot of discussions about this over the last 2-3 years, you know, with COVID especially. A lot of channeling happened channeling happened, okay, which is bullshit, because the channeling has a very specific quality and training in its core. And if you don't have this, I can see it. Bless your heart, what comes through, but it comes from a very different perspective. Trust me, it takes a piece of your body. Whenever I channel, I need time to recover. Okay, but energy takes care of your body. But the idea is that we talked with Foster about it. I said, what is this? Look at how much political propaganda is now in channels. The masters of what was it, Orion, come through and they say, trust Trump.
Oh my
Wow.
And so on and so on. I thought, what the hell is this? Or he would show me these 3-hour videos that people would send. And at the very end, it was a propaganda video for the Republican Party to please support Trump because he's the Messiah. You see, that is the problem I have, Aline, independent from Foster, because I'm a very separate person in this whole thing. I'm not a shaman. I came in as an additional teacher, but I come also from a Hermetic background. For us, it's not common to expose ourselves to such a degree. You see, we're more behind the scenes people. So, and one reason is when I see this crap, really this crap, and I think that these people are frauds, they're liars, they're frauds, and they're basically just scammers, because at the end, by the way, it's always about money. Guarantee about money, send me money, the world will end, send me money. Well, what do you need money if the world ends? There was this guy in New York who had a whole channel about the apocalypse, which was like December. And he said, send money. And people send money. And like, why is it? I mean, are there so many demented people in the world? Yes.
You also have to be very careful about harvesting, because people want a lot of energy by getting attention, because now we have social media.
Oh, yeah.
So people need attention to harvest their viewers.
Yeah.
And eventually you have to say, if that's not my intention to harvest viewers, if it's my intention actually to give back, that's a very different social media than just me and give me attention. And I take that attention as power and I use it in my life for what? I don't know. Where is it being redirected? Is it being redirected to something other than materialism? We have to ask ourselves that with social media. People always ask me, well, how could you move to Las Vegas? A shaman in Las Vegas, very funny. But we came here and it's actually quite lovely to be around. I go to the gym, it's 60% African Americans, and Hispanic and full of
Asian.
Chinese, Asian and everything. And you just fall in love with it. You have the whole world and you enjoy it. It's like a relief. It's a relaxation.
Because we after COVID and after 20, by the way, exactly the same line. How can you be a shaman and live in Beverly Hills? 20 years ago, I heard exactly the same line. And these are people who live in some council flats in London, basically, and let the government pay for them. But here I am being judged on the other side of the planet. It's amazing to me. It's amazing, right? It's really amazing. But the thing is, I have to say, after LA and during COVID, and I said, let's see where we're going here. And it was all about transition. So I was sure we're not going to stay in one place for too long. And we went to Palm Springs, Indian Wells, which is, all Palm Springs area.
Very white, unbelievably
and
white.
We had this impression it's going to be this wonderful, gay, liberal, wonderful place. I ended up in fucking MAGA land. Sorry, but this is what it was. It was white MAGA. It was all MAGAs. I cannot. I mean, of course, they were very nice to us because I'm, blue-eyed and white, right? I mean, Foster also passes as white, but very nice. But I'm telling you, it was white. It was judgmental. There was a lot of Trump flags around. And I thought, where the hell have we ended up here? You see what I mean? So I said to him, listen, this can't be it. Beautiful house, great place, wonderful. I mean, it was a glorified old folks home, that's what it is. It's really pretty. But it was quite white. You see what I mean? And if you have racist gay people, I thought that can't be it. This can't be it. I said, I need the world the way I live it, with all colors and all races and all, and we came to
all
Vegas.
beliefs, all political views, everything.
Beliefs, see? And funny enough, we came here, and to my surprise, it's quite comfortable to be here. And as Foster says, I met more Black people than the last 5 years. She's like, thank God. You see, that's the idea. So movement is important. I think moving forward is important, and progress is important in that sense. But when we look at I think that moving forward is a form of nurturing yourself. I think nature will nurture you whenever you connect with nature. Now, I'm not the shaman, but when you connect with nature, and my guide said, I think in the channel, trees are psychic. So you want to develop psychic energy, you need to connect with trees, which I thought it makes total sense, you see, because they're interconnected. They're interconnected. And I think that moving forward, leaving, arriving, shifting, changing is in our nature. And I think that is our nature, to change. And the acting on the change is a form of nurturing. You see, that's the idea. So I think that nurturing has a very big value here.
No, absolutely.
It's the action, it's the movement, it's the doing. That's the nurture for me.
That was something I was wishing to talk to you about as well, about well, my religion, if you like, is nature. So I adore being in nature, and more I feel that, especially with the creativity you mentioned about rabbits, I'm surrounded by rabbits here, but I am everywhere. And it feels very much we're connecting more with Gaia. So how do we connect more with, to speak to listeners, how do we connect more with crystals, with plants, with animals? How do we go about that when it's one of the things when that there's people saying, well, that's a load of rubbish, for example. So getting past that and believing and feeling and going into nature and hugging trees. And and
when you go into matriarchy, especially now, when we're going into the feminine-based understanding, that automatically you love animals. It's the beginning of the consciousness of animals, how we treat animals. Whether, do we want to eat animals? How can we do it in quite a new way, to honor the spirit of an animal? We're turning back to that now. And I think a great deal of people are becoming psychic through their pets because they care about their pets. They fall in love with them like their children. And then they start to say, I don't know what's going on with my pet. And the vet can't quite get it. So then they go to somebody who can speak, interspecies communication with an animal. We are surrounded by people, whether they're in Singapore, whether they're in Germany, that are animal communicators.
Yeah.
And they're really quite serious. They're very psychic, and they're also love animals. And they teach love. They teach unconditional love. And this is the best way, beyond religions, beyond all the divisions and separations, to get people to finally understand spiritual principles through their animals. And I think that's a wonderful. Plus, you're talking about the water rabbit. So you need to go to rivers this year. You need to go to lakes. You need to go to brooks. You need to go to bodies of ocean to purify, to cleanse yourself, because water is purification. And when you're around a certain amount of negative ions, when you're waking up early in the morning, and getting these ions, or walking near water with these ions, when you meditate, it's much more powerful. And, all the stuff that we get during the day, everybody's opinions, all the ways our auras interact with other people. So we get too much negativity, glomming onto us. You need to take baths when you get home, or you need to take a shower. You need to get it off you. That's water. Water always soothing, cooling it down when you're too hot-headed. That's why we had that experience. Remember in Los Angeles, our whole garden got filled with snails because it was so hot and the snails had to cool down the plants. So instead of getting rid of them, we just embrace the snail with its little home. And once we did that, once everything cooled down and we understand we were too hot, we had to cool down our own inflammations, everything, all the snails left overnight.
Mm-hmm. Let me say from a Hermetic point, because the way you asked it is, how can we connect more with which I learned quite early, and this is how you understand it now, that nature will adopt a way of communicating with us, because it's easier for an animal to speak to you than a human. You see what I mean? Because the animal or the plant or the crystal is not filtered
with subconscious imprints,
with subconscious stuff. There is no, there is no tree that says, I'm happy, but my parents left me. There is no such a thing. Or the rabbit that says, or the cat that says, I wonder where my mother is. It doesn't exist, because in nature there is the tiger has the pup stays with the tiger for about 6, 7, 8 months, I think, and then she's gone overnight and never returns. You see? And that is what nature does, always progressing and knowing when it's done. It's humans who have to buy our children apartments and cars and pay for their education and, be loving and forgiving and all that crap. That's the idea. So again, this is unnatural, but interesting. Let me say something, because I know that you have cats. The thing is, cats, for example, didn't get domesticated per se, because look, they're very individual, right? Dogs, by the way, did not get domesticated. They just vibed with humans, liked them, stuck around, and started to learn to communicate in a human emotional way. Because the larynx doesn't develop speech in that sense, right? But don't we have parrots who can literally, you know what I mean? Who speak better English than most English people, right? And you're surprised, but what happens here is nature speaks to us because nature learns our ways. And a cat, for example, the meowing of a cat, when a cat talks to you, that's not natural to a cat. They don't do this in nature. You will never see a panther going, it's just not happening, because obviously if it's wild, it's not around people, right? But a cat stuck around, adapted to you, and started to mimicking what you do. Well, she's opening her mouth and something comes out, so I'm going to do the same thing. So they're replicating movement and sound to convey their emotion. But the language of nature is purely emotional, of course. See? So as a side effect, you understand what I mean, Aline? Yeah. From a side effect, you cannot not. I knew a woman who said, all that crystal stuff is hoo-hoo, but she was wearing diamonds, rings, rubies. And I'm like, okay. And she said, I gotta have this malachite, but I don't believe in it. You see what I mean? The thing is, we don't buy crystals. They choose us. They choose us. They come to us. Plants come to us. The same with an animal. How often, we have a ring on our door, which is, that ring doorbell, but suddenly also you're connected to every ring doorbell in America, basically, or in your neighborhood. So 3 times an hour, I lost my dog, my parrot flew away, look for my cat, please look for Buffy, please, you know what I mean? You see what I mean? Animals help us to interconnect with our own species.
Yeah.
And so why would a dog leave or run away or do this? To make you talk to another human being for more than just, where's my money, where's my work, I'm tired and I'm hungry. To go beyond that, you see? So that you're helping, you see what I mean? Nature is a purely emotional consciousness in that sense, but it doesn't have vocal cords in that sense. So the cat comes and says, oh, nice people, you know, and when they come, and with cats, when they do this, right, and they snuggle on you, they don't snuggle, they mark you. Mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like peeing on you. No, just we don't like the peeing. So they snuggle and mark you basically. But every kind of talking, and some dogs have that too, like huskies, right, who are talking. They basically say, I'm going to send you my emotion to tell you how I feel, but I'm going to mimic your vocal cords, so to speak, you see? So, you know, some of us are, of course, very loving. And you ask, how can we communicate with nature? You have to love nature.
Yes, yeah.
You have to love nature, from the bee to the mouse to the rat, to the mosquito, to the piranha, to the crocodile. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not just, I love the dog, but that thing, oh my God.